Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. This morning, my guest wasn't able to make it, so you've got me. And I've been feeling inspired, if you will, to talk this morning about 5D and what that means and how to recognize it and who is and isn't in it. Because this is a conversation I've been seeing over and over again over the past year or so. And I've had people email me and ask me about 5D because they're feeling guilty or frustrated that they're not in 5D because other people are saying that they're in 5D. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that is so that every one of us can recognize it when we're in it. 5D, what Spirit was showing me years ago, is a dimension of consciousness. Now, some other people are calling them densities, which is another way to explain it. It's the amount of light that a person is experiencing, and darkness is kind of heavy and oppressive. It's heavy, it's dense. That's why some people refer to these as densities rather than dimensions, because the idea of dimensions has been brought again in about the last 10 years really into the collective consciousness as a place. And these dimensions are dimensions of consciousness, not necessarily places. So there's a difference between a dimension of consciousness and an alternate universe and alternate timelines. So these are all words that have been brought into the collective consciousness over the last couple of years. And so I want to kind of try to help dismantle the misunderstanding of what they are so that you can understand where you are and where you're heading. So the visual that I'm getting right now is, say, for example, if you don't know where you're going, then how do you know when you arrive there? And then how do you know where you presently are if you don't know what the destination is? So this is all about, life isn't a destination, it's a journey. And at the same time, ultimately, what every person seeks, whether they know it or not, is to find heaven within themselves. We all ultimately have the same life purpose. We all came here with our unique life purposes and our unique soul purposes with regard to the work that we want to do and the experiences that we want to have while we're in physical form. And every person ultimately has exactly the same life purpose, and that is to remember who they are. Now, a lot of people won't remember who they are because this matrix that we've been living in for thousands and thousands and thousands of years have kept a lot of people from remembering who they are. And even our belief systems, as much as they teach love, also have so much fear integrated and interwoven within the teachings that many people can't remember who they are. This is what I refer to as fear-based beliefs disguised as love. Fear disguised as love. It's in every one of our systems, and it's built throughout society and has been since fear came to the planet approximately 11,000 years ago. And which is why it's so difficult for so many people to be able to decipher the difference between fear and love, because fear is so often through deception, which is what fear is made to look like love. So here's a perfect example of what we're seeing presently in our reality that I think many of you know who you are, will quickly recognize. And it's difficult to recognize a lot of the other ones, but this is one that's very prominent in our reality right now. That is a fear-based belief disguised as love. And it's what's keeping people stuck in this lower dimension, 3D, lower 4D density dimension. And that belief is, if you don't take the arm poke, you don't love everyone else. So it feels like love. If you really love humanity, if you really love your family, then you'll do this. It's actually fear disguised as love. So you can start to recognize how that if then is one of the most common ways fear is used to control humanity. It's one of the most common ways that fear is disguised as love and keeps us stuck in this fear-based density, this fear-based consciousness we've been calling 3D. So once you begin to recognize that if you really love me, then you will do this, is actually a fear-based narrative, the mind can begin to open to completely new possibilities. It's like that big aha awakening that a lot of people are getting. This is part of the spiritual awakening that many people have begun to experience as well. So the Great Awakening actually started around, I want to say 2010, leading up to 2012, leading up to the 3D, 4D convergence of 2012, which is when a lot of people had their spiritual awakening and moved out of 3D consciousness and into 4D consciousness, where they began the spiritual spiral up into 5D. Now, a lot of those people, because of the fear-based narrative that's happening on the planet right now, are still stuck in 4D because they haven't been able to recognize in the collective narrative that's happening right now where fear is being disguised as love. These are where a lot of light workers are stuck right now, and they don't even know that they are, because they woke up enough to have their spiritual awakening, but haven't enough to recognize how the controlled narrative is keeping them from ascending further into the divine birth rate of 5D. That is the reason they woke up first. The light workers woke up pre-2012 so they could assist humanity through this process that's happening right now, which is, moving as many people as possible out of the fear-based 3D fear control narrative and onto the spiritual spiral of 4D. They woke up first to be able to teach other people how to move through that spiral. Unfortunately, a lot of them are still stuck in that 4D and haven't transitioned up into 5 because they don't recognize the whole picture that's playing out in the world. Now, there are also a lot of people who are in that 4D spiral right now who have had their great awakening with regard to information, but haven't had their spiritual awakening yet. So it's a whole lot of people right now who are in that 4D bridge, which is actually, it's referred to as a bridge. It's like there's a 3D earth and there's a 5D earth, and their 4D is the birth canal that connects the two. And a lot of people are in, a good chunk of humanity is presently in that 4D. Now, the term 4D bridge gets used. I prefer to see it actually as a spiral. So instead of looking at old earth and new earth side by side with 4D in between, it's actually more like 3D earth and 5D earth, and 4D is the spiritual spiral that links the two of them. And eventually they will completely separate. But for right now, a lot of the people who have had both their information awakening, or what are aware of what's going on the planet, and people who have had their spiritual awakening have popped up out of that 3D reality because they're now in 4D and they're able to gaze down upon what's been happening in 3D. Not the same as looking down on other people who are still stuck in 3D. That is an egoic perspective. This is about raising our consciousness up into 4D so that we can gaze upon what's happening in the world and send love and light into it, because ultimately the desire is to bring as many people as possible with us into these higher dimensions of consciousness. So the 3D reality, which is very dense, is fear-based. That's why I often refer to it as a fear-based reality we've been living in. It is based in fear and control. And all of the dark entities that were here, that were part of holding that fear-based reality together, were here for humanity to experience the contrast. So ultimately, every one of us had the same soul desire when we transitioned to Earth, which is to see if we could find our own light within the darkness, and to see if we could remember that we are love, the embodiment of love, within the fear. So we chose to experience the contrast. We wanted the challenge of being able to find ourselves in that. And then if we found ourselves in that, lift ourselves up enough to be able to bring some other people with us to help them wake up and remember who they are as well. None of this is ever about us. None of it's about me, who I am, who I'm here to be and fulfill my ego's desires. It isn't about that at all. On a soul perspective, it's wanting to remember who we are on a soul level and then help others remember who they are on a soul level. When we remember it from that, ego completely pops out of it, because I'm not here having this TV show, or I'm calling it a TV show, my YouTube show right now, because my ego needs to be in front of the camera. My ego actually doesn't like being in front of the camera. I'm not here because I like being seen and heard. In fact, it's kind of, in complete transparency, it's a little bit of a struggle for me every day, which is why my shows are inconsistent, because I'm like, okay, I got to get on camera and I have to psych myself up to be here with all of you, because I know that's why I'm here. The reason I put myself on the planet was to help all of you remember who you are. And it's not always fun and it's not always easy. And, getting myself up, it's so funny. The words I'm hearing right now are gird up your loins, which is hysterical. It's like, pick up your big girl panties and get on camera. And so it isn't always easy for me, but I know that what I'm here to share with you is so vitally important for the whole of humanity that I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone and get on camera and be here with all of you. Because that's why I'm here. And it took me a long time to accept the reason I'm here is to assist other people in crossing that bridge and becoming who they are intended to be, who their soul intended to be on the planet. And that, and part of what I was shown years ago is that I'm here for the freedom of humanity. And that's taken me a while to really grasp what that means. I know that my soul is a freedom fighter. I've always been a freedom fighter in every one of my incarnations. That is who I am. It is a soul's purpose as my soul to be a person who's out there on the forefront on behalf of the freedom of humanity. And so I have to be willing to put myself out here in where it's uncomfortable for me to help everyone else. And, every time I do this show, I get a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more comfortable, but I still have to psych myself up to be on here with all of you. And I know that some of you are really surprised at that, because I show up and shine, which is one of my mantras, show up and shine. But getting here to the point where I'm in front of the camera speaking to all of you is still like I have to nudge myself to be here with you. And then I remember that it's my soul's purpose to be here with you and help you remember who you are. And when I remember this isn't about me, that it's about all of you, that's what nudges me to get on camera. Because I know that there are messages that come through me from spirit, from source, from prime creator, from the angels, whatever your belief is. Ultimately, it's all the same. It's all spirit in love and light and truth. I always set the intentions that only the whole truth, but nothing but the truth, the whole truth, so help me God, is what comes through me. So I set very clear intentions that only the highest loving divine truth is allowed to come through my mind and anchor in my heart and then speak out for me. So what I wanted to speak to all of you about today is 5D. And that is maybe a little bit about 6D as well, because I have my 6D money tree program where I'm teaching people what spirit has taught me about creating prosperity in the etheric field before it manifests here physically. Because when enough of us understand how prosperity really works in the quantum field, then we'll be able to collectively manifest the Nasara Jasara that so many of us know is available to us as humanity, and we just need to get out of our own way. Okay, that's 6D. And if you want to learn more about that, I'll do another show on that. And then you can go check out my 6D money tree program to learn how to grow money in 6D. So back to 5D. What I wanted to talk about is what 5D is. We know that 3D is a fear-based consciousness, and that our soul wanted the challenge. Souls are always learning and growing. Wanted the challenge to grow in this. The earth field is a ripe growing opportunity for the soul. It is, fear is, it's like compost. It's an excellent medium for growth. So we came here intentionally because we wanted to experience this medium of growth that has and continues presently to exist on the planet. This is a learning planet. The contrast exists here specifically so we as a collective of souls can learn through it. And our souls knew before we took human form that we were going to experience the contrast, and we wanted the challenge that came with it. Now, I was shown years ago that Earth would remain a learning planet until which time the collective of souls agreed for it to become a planet of peace. This planet of peace has been foretold for thousands of years. And what has happened on an etheric level is that our collective of souls have now come to that agreement, that we are now ready for this to be a planet of peace, and that it is time for the contrast to transition back out. So that is what is happening. Now, on a human level, it's going to look like extreme chaos. Now, I've been assured by the guardians that I work with that they will have it be as chaos-free as possible. However, it will not be free of chaos because many people will be transitioning off the planet whose souls are finished here. They will choose how they choose to exit. And some of them have chosen to be a part of the exposure of the darkness so that it can transition off the planet. When we get past all of this as conspiracy theory and look at it from a spiritual perspective, understand that there are many souls here who have agreed to play certain roles in order for the darkness to be exposed and in order for it to be transitioned off the planet. And they have agreed on a soul level to play those roles. And many of them have agreed on a soul level to transition out as a result of what the darkness has been playing out on the planet. We're nearing the end of this level of the human experience. It's actually like a video game I call the Great Human Experience. We are near the end of this 3D level of the game. And many of humanity are starting to pop up out of the 3D and they're starting to play the 4D level of the game, which is where the awakening happens, and it's where we begin to spiral up the spiritual spiral so that we can get into the 5D part of the game. So 5D. 3D is where we do all of our processing. It's where we process our lives. It's where we process the past. It's where we process our beliefs. It's where we process our understanding. It's where our spiritual gifts are activated. It's where we begin to see beyond the veil. And the veil is it's like the gateway between 3 and 4D. So a lot of us are now being able to see beyond the veil. The veil of deception is really what it is. A lot of religions talk about the veil. It's the veil between earth and heaven. Well, it's the veil of deception. It's the matrix that has kept us in this 3D reality. So a lot of people are now beginning to learn how to break through the veil and begin their journey up the spiritual spiral. So we're all in this journey, and ultimately the collective goal, if you will, is to create heaven on earth. That's the destination, if you will, within this human experience game. And in order to attain that 5D, fifth dimension, 5 density consciousness, We all have to move up the spiritual spiral. Nobody can bypass the spiritual process. I know we don't like to, because the spiritual process isn't fun, but we all got to go through it, because ultimately the 4D, as we're spiraling up the spiritual spiral into 5D, is about letting go of everything that is not 5D. And that requires us to all take a good hard look at our baggage, our individual baggage and our collective baggage, and process it. So what's happening right now on the planet is that humanity is going through its collective processing. And the processing our lives is not easy. It can be very uncomfortable and very painful. I try to help people through that process as easily as possible. That's what my transcendence process is. It was given to me by Spirit for myself to learn how to rise, to move through my fear-based concepts. And then Spirit's asked me to start teaching it to other people. So that's what my transcendence process is. And that this process is necessary on an individual level, and it's also necessary on a collective level. And so that's what's starting to happen now that much of humanity has popped up above the veil and the 3D is going to start melting away. We are going to need to process our lives. So in the past, we had to wait until we transitioned out of physical form to process our lives. But now, because of the 3D, 4D convergence that happened in 2012, we're not able to process our lives here while we're still in physical form. So we can bring heaven to earth rather than waiting to die to get to heaven. So 5D is that heaven on earth that so many people have been wanting to bring into our physical reality. And what that is a pure of heart, love-based reality, where every decision that is made from the infinite love of our hearts. So the human heart is actually being activated to be aligned with the heart of Source. My understanding is it's an alignment with the feminine heart of Source. So Source is not a man in the sky, that judges us. Source creator, prime creator, is both masculine and feminine. What's happened in our patriarchies is that the divine mother, the divine feminine aspect of God, was discounted and basically almost buried alive, which is a really sad thing to think about. But has been resurrected. About the last 10 years has been about resurrecting the divine mother, the mother God within every single one of us. And the mother's heart is the heart that's opening up within all of us who have popped up above the 3D veil. And our hearts are being activated with the Mother God's heart of infinite love and compassion. That's what 5D is. It's about our hearts being activated with this infinite love and infinite compassion for all life on earth. It is also what I talk about as returning to the garden. It's returning to Gaia's garden, the Garden of Eden that the earth once was her garden, the mother's garden. And over the past 10 years or so, Mom has been coming out to clean house and to bring her children back home, back to her heart. So that's what 5D is. It's about all of us returning to the heart. It's a heart-based consciousness. So this is also one of the reasons when I talk about transformation, where it is the mind, body, heart, and spirit, all four aspects of the human experience, not just mind, body, spirit. We have to bring heart into absolutely everything, because that is the reality we are creating. That is the 5D reality we are all seeking to find, first within ourselves and then create on a planet as our collective experience. In order to get to that 5D, we have to let go of everything that is not that. That's why the 4D processing is so important, because it's about recognizing everything that is not love so that we can drop it and let it go, process it out of our experience, learn how to love all of it. Yes, even the most painful parts. so that all we bring into our new reality is love. Now, I mention this because there are a lot of people out there who think they are in 5D when they are not. They're in the 4D spiral, spiritual spiral. Some of them think they're in 5D because they've attempted to bypass the spiritual process, but at some point they're going to be hit with something that finishes waking them up so they can finish their journey up the spiritual spiral. Every one of us receives awakening experiences to help us move up the spiral. Now, they feel like, hell when they first hit us because they're so uncomfortable, and our comfort zones need to be jostled so that we continue moving up the spiral. 5D, I've had glimpses of, and I can tell you that when I'm there, it is pure bliss. And understand there's a difference between happiness and joy. The pure bliss that comes with the joy of the heart is different than being happy. So many of us can go through life being happy in our relationships, happy in our lives, happy with our kids, happy with our circumstances, or unhappy with all of those. Joy is different. It's bliss that encapsulates our entire human experience. That we feel it on a etheric, on a soul, on a body level. It is energy that it encompasses everything of who we are. It's visceral experience. And I've been there. There have been times that I have been in this space of pure bliss. And trust me, it's better than any drug you've ever had. I'm like, can I stay here because it's so good? And then Spirit reminds me that I do live on planet Earth, and that on planet Earth, we're all navigating the life processing presently. So very few people are actually in 5D. We might step into it throughout our day, yet we're still processing our lives. So for those of you who are feeling guilty that you're not in 5D yet because so-and-so said they are, one, it's really, really important to not judge yourself based on other people's expectations and standards and experiences, because every single one of us are experiencing life in the way our soul wants us to experience it. No two people are experiencing the human experience the same. And it's funny, what I'm hearing is we all get there when we get there. So every one of us has our own stuff we need to process. And the more we process it within ourselves, the more we're then able to process it, the collective story, because that needs to go through some processing as well. The reason all this darkness is coming to the surface for resolution, all the false stories about our history, all the pain stories about our collective history, all the fear-based beliefs in our societies and in our cultures and in our religiosities are all being brought to the surface across every system and every concept. The fear is being brought to the surface for us to resolve it collectively, so that as a collective of humanity, we can move into the 5D reality. Now, some will get there first, and it's not because they're bigger or better or more important. It is simply because they are older souls who came here specifically for the purpose of leading humanity into the light. This is like comparing a preschooler to a high school graduate. It doesn't make the high school graduate any better than the preschooler. All it is that the high school graduate is older and has more experience and has garnered more wisdom. But by no means is that high school graduate any better than the toddler who is just learning. That's what's really important to understand in this collective human experience that we're having. None of this is about anyone being better than anyone else. We need to get out of that egoic belief that some people are better than other people. The truth is, some people are simply experiencing their journey differently than others. None of us know what another soul is here to learn. None of us know what another soul's purpose is until they know what it is and can share it forward. A lot of people don't even know what their purpose is. They don't even know they're here to find love within themselves. They don't even know they're here to remember that they are the light. And the way to heaven on earth is through themselves. A vast number of people don't even know that because they've been taught something else. This doesn't make them less than. It doesn't make them worse. It doesn't make anyone better than anyone else. We are all here. Yes, even those that are propagating the darkness are all here playing a role in this earth experience. And when we understand that, it makes looking at the darkness and those who are working in the dark easier to understand that they are playing a role. Remember, what's happening on the planet right now has been foretold for thousands of years. They are simply playing out their role of this game, this time that's already been predicted. They're playing out that role on a soul level. Now, on a physical human level, it's horrific and it's unacceptable and it's unforgivable and it's horrifying. On a soul level, they are playing out a role they agreed to play on the greater scale of things. And on the greater scale of things, they will be transitioning off the planet because that is also part of the collective of souls agreements that they will no longer be here. And those who are finished with the learning experience and aren't here intended to move forward will also transition off. This is how we can look at the all hell that's breaking loose on the planet right now is hell breaking loose so that we can transmute it and process it and send it back into the light. Send it back to source from whence it came. Ultimately, that's what it is. So our role, every single one of us who remember that we are the light, our role is to send light into the darkness to transmute it. Our role, once we remember that we are love embodied, is to send love into the fear and transmute it. People ask me all the time, what can I do? The best thing you can do right now while we're figuring out how to recreate our systems is to send light into the darkness, transmute it, and send it back to source. Send fear, send love into the fear, transmute it, and send it back to source. Remember, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Our love, our light is what will transmute the darkness and is what will transmute the fear. When we remember that's who we are and that's why we're here, well, it's so much easier to not get sucked up into the fear-based stories. Right now, so many light workers and so many people who are here to help humanity break free from the darkness are getting sucked up into it because they don't remember who they are. They don't remember that they are the light and they are the love that came here specifically to transmute the darkness and the fear. The more of us who remember that, the easier the process will be, the less suffering that has to occur. One of the sayings I remember from years ago is that suffering happens. How long we suffer is a choice. So this is what's happening collectively on the planet and will be more so in the next few months, possibly the next year, is a great deal of suffering on the planet. But the suffering only lasts as long as we continue to hold it and propagate it within ourselves. When we remember that we are the light and we are the love and we are the way and we are the ones we've been waiting for, and we remember that we are source light embodied through us and source love embodied through us, we are one with God, one with source. We are all streams of consciousness of source love and source light and source truth. When we remember that, we can then push that forward from our heart into the darkness and into the fear and into the suffering and help to transmute it. And the more of us who do that, the easier the process will be and the less painful the process will be. And every single one of us have that within ourselves to do. To actively do that every day, not just for ourselves, but for the whole of humanity, remembering that we, as one body of humanity, are one. We're all experiencing this as one body of humanity. And the more of us who feed love and light into that body, the easier and faster the body will be healed. With love, all things are possible. The more you do that, the more you remember that, and the more your consciousness will shift into that 5D. And you'll start to experience that more and more and more every day. And the more you experience it, the more the darkness starts to fade away, and the easier the process up the spiritual spiral becomes, because you'll no longer see any aspects of your own story through the eyes of suffering and through the eyes of fear, which is part of the experience we've been collectively experiencing for, again, approximately 11,000 years. That's what I've been shown. When our planet hit the dark side of the galaxy, that's when fear came to the planet, and we've had that fear-based reality since then. We're now have entered the light side of the galaxy, what's referred to as the Age of Aquarius and the fifth dimension, and that we're now able to purge from the planet anything that is not love and anything that is not light. And the more of us who hold that vibration within ourselves, the faster and easier that process will be. So I wanted to share that with all of you, that the 5D consciousness that we are moving into is a consciousness where all things are possible, where love is all that is. Does that mean somebody won't fall and get hurt? Well, of course, life happens, right? But the fear and that is attempting to control humanity in this dark density will cease to exist. And then all that is left is love. And through love, we'll create an entirely new world. Competition ceases to exist. Fear ceases to exist. Judgment ceases to exist. What is the unconditional love of what we know as Christ consciousness, the return of Christ consciousness, and the infinite love where all things are possible. Divine love through me makes all things possible. That's actually a quote I keep above my desk to remind me that that's who I am and that's who all of us are. And when we remember divine love through each of us makes all things possible, that allows us to hold ourselves in that 5D consciousness. And eventually that will become our collective reality. So I wanted to share that with all of you today. I hope that helps some of you who are feeling frustrated that you're not there yet. Remember that it's a process. And the more you hold yourself in love and compassion, and the more you hold this human experience and everyone else who's in this human experience with us in love and compassion, the faster all of us will rise up, rise and shine in the 5D reality we all seek to create within ourselves and within the planet as a whole. So be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. Remember that transcendence is a process. It isn't a quick fix. We all got to go through it. The more of us that go through it together, the faster we'll get where we want to go. I love you all. I wish you all well. And as always, remember to hold your light so high, others can't help but see their own light. And until next time, get bold, be fearless, and live free. Mwah. you.